Okay, so you wanted to take a deep dive into this Sean Combs situation. And, wow,
Yeah.
that stack of articles, I'll be honest,
Yeah.
intense is an understatement.
Right.
Like, we all know about the whole federal charges thing already, but now over 120 people are coming forward.
Yeah.
This is not your average celebrity scandal anymore.
It really isn't. And what's so fascinating about this is it really seems like there are some patterns emerging here that kind of point to maybe even a systemic problem within the music industry itself.
Right, because it seems like every single day there's like a new headline, and then Tony Busby, the attorney, he's front and center with all this, and he is not holding back at all. He even said this could be the entertainment industry's biggest open secret. So, like, what are we even talking about here? What are the actual accusations?
Well, they're really disturbing, to be honest. We're talking about things like violent sexual assault and rape, even accusations that minors were involved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Busby's saying that 25 of these alleged victims were actually underage at the time of the alleged incidents.
Underage, see, now that's where it's like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Like, where's all this even happening?
Well, a lot of the accusations are about parties in LA, New York, Miami, even during music industry auditions. That's what some people are claiming. And when you connect that back to the larger picture, you really have to start asking some questions about just the power dynamics that are going on in these situations.
And it's not like it's just one or two people, right?
Yeah.
This is over 120 people so far that have come forward. And then Busby saying that there's potentially over 3,000 victims in total?
Exactly.
Like, that's almost incomprehensible.
Yeah, and he's urging anybody and everybody who has any information to come forward.
Wow.
And what's really unsettling is that Busby said that around 90% of the cases that his firm is looking into involve some kind of drug use allegations.
So you're talking about a pattern here, maybe, of people being drugged and then assaulted, which is...
Potentially.
I mean, that's incredibly calculated and predatory if it's true.
Yeah.
But we do need to, before we get too far, we need to address the other side of this, right? So how is Combs responding to all of this?
Well, you can imagine he's denying everything.
Yeah.
His legal team is saying it's a smear campaign, the whole thing.
Smear campaign? That's a bold statement to make. He's got to be feeling the heat, though, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
This is serious.
On top of those federal charges he's already facing, he's been hit with 12 civil suits since last November alone.
Wow.
11 of those are directly accusing him of assault.
Okay, so 12 lawsuits. That's not something you can just sweep under the rug. What's he doing about those?
Well, he's outright denied most of them. One of them was settled, but of course the details of that are confidential. And as for the rest, he hasn't officially responded yet.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot that's still up in the air, legally speaking.
I can't even imagine just the stress of being in that position. But we also have to remember that behind these headlines and these legal battles, there are real people who are claiming that they have been really affected by this.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really important to remember that this goes way beyond celebrity gossip.
Right.
And we really have to consider the systemic issues that might be at play here.
Okay, so to make this a little bit more real, a little bit less abstract, can you tell us about some of these specific accusations? I know that there are a couple that really stood out to you.
Yeah, there are two that are really disturbing. One involves a 9-year-old boy who was brought to New York by his parents for a Bad Boy Records audition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were promised a record deal, but the boy claims that he was abused by multiple people, and he says Combs was one of them.
A 9-year-old? Oh, my gosh.
And then there's another case of a 15-year-old girl who went to a party in New York, and she says that she was drugged, taken into another room, and assaulted by multiple people, and she claims Combs was there.
Okay, see, this is where it gets really concerning, because if these accusations are true, it really seems like there could be a pattern of behavior here.
Exactly, and it really raises some serious questions about abuse of power, especially within the music industry. And sadly, it's something that, we've seen before, not just in music, but in any field, there are these kinds of power imbalances.
It's true, and it makes you think how many other stories are out there that we just don't know about. You know, what allows these systems of abuse to go on for so long?
Right. That's the real question here. And a lot of times it comes down to this culture of fear and silence.
Right.
Victims are afraid to come forward because they're worried about, what's going to happen to them. They're afraid of their careers. They're afraid for their safety even.
Especially when you're dealing with someone as powerful and influential as someone like Sean Combs, it's easy to see how that fear would be there.
Exactly. And I mean, it goes beyond just him, right?
Yeah, for sure.
This is about the whole system that seems to protect these powerful people and silence the people who are vulnerable. And if even just a small portion of these accusations are true, how do we make it so that these victims feel safe enough to actually speak up?
That's the real question, right?
Yeah.
So where do we even begin to try to dismantle these power structures? What needs to actually change?
It's a huge problem with a lot of different angles, but it has to start with transparency and accountability. We need to create a culture where victims are not just listened to, but actually believed.
Right.
And where people in positions of power are held responsible for what they do, no matter who they are.
We have seen a little bit of progress, though, right? I mean, look at the #MeToo movement.
Oh, absolutely.
That's definitely raised awareness.
For sure, but there's still so much more to do. We can't let the conversation die down,
Right, yeah.
We got to keep pushing for real change.
I think we need to recognize that we all play a part in all of this. Like, it's not enough to just say, well, I would never do that, We need to be challenging those behaviors when we see them happening around us. We need to be supporting the survivors, and we need to be advocating for a safer and more equal industry for everybody.
Exactly. We need to work together to change this culture of silence and fear into a culture of accountability and support.
It is interesting, though, that even with over 120 people making these accusations, Combs is still basically saying, nope, not me. And his lawyers are saying this is all just a smear campaign. So what do you make of that? Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, we do have to remember that all of this is still playing out in the legal system, and everyone's entitled to due process, right?
Of course.
But when you look at the sheer number of people who have come forward and how similar their stories are, it does make you wonder, It's up to the courts to decide if these accusations are true, but there's no doubt that this case is having a major impact on the music industry and beyond.
And whether or not any of this ends up sticking to him legally, the damage to his reputation is already done.
Exactly. Accusations like these can be devastating to someone's career, even if nothing is ever proven in a court of law. And it makes you think about our responsibility as consumers, as fans, even as an industry.
Right.
Do we keep supporting artists when things like this come out? Can you separate the art from the person who made it? These are tough questions, and there are no easy answers.
Yeah, it becomes a real ethical dilemma and a moral one, too. And it forces us to look at the people we put on pedestals and really question the power we give them.
Absolutely. It really does highlight the need for greater transparency, not just in terms of people's behavior, but the systems that are in place that might be allowing for abuse to happen in the first place.
And this is just a really stark reminder that no matter how rich and famous you are, you're not above the law, and sometimes getting justice means being willing to face some very uncomfortable truths about the systems we're all part of. It's easy to get caught up in all the legal stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like who said what and when and all that. But
right.
At the end of the day, this is bigger than just Sean Combs. It's about the music industry as a whole and really their responsibility to protect people.
This is like ripping the Band-Aid off a wound that's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
It's making everyone wake up and see these uncomfortable truths about an industry that has often been okay with exploitation and power dynamics.
It makes you wonder how many other people are out there, right? How many other stories have we not heard because people were too afraid? How many talented young people have been taken advantage of, Their dreams basically turned into nightmares.
It's really impossible to say, but when you see this many people making accusations against just one person, it's probably not an isolated thing.
Right.
And that's what's so heartbreaking about it and why we need to look at how the music industry operates fundamentally.
Yeah. Right. So we've talked about accountability and transparency. But what does that actually look like? How do we make that happen?
Well, for one thing, we need to create ways for people to report abuse and feel safe doing it.
Right.
They have to know they won't be punished for coming forward, and those channels for reporting, they have to be taken seriously, thoroughly investigated.
Right. It can't just be for show.
Exactly. And if someone is found guilty, there have to be real consequences for them.
Right. It's about making sure the survivors are the ones who are listened to and believed and supported, not silenced and pushed aside.
That's it, exactly. And it's also about educating young artists, right?
Yes.
Teaching them about their rights so that they can recognize when someone's trying to take advantage of them.
Right. Knowledge is power, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it can really make the difference.
This whole thing has been really eye-opening, I'll be honest.
I know.
It's like a big reality check that we can't just ignore these things, no matter how famous or successful the people involved are.
It's a call to action for all of us, really, whether you're an artist or someone who works in the industry or even just a fan. We have to stand up and speak up and demand better.
Yes.
Because staying silent just protects the abusers, and it's past time for that to change.
Well said. For those of you listening, we'll leave you with this thought. What can you do in your own life to make the music industry a safer and more equal place for everyone? What are the conversations we need to be having? What actions can we take? Because it's going to take all of us to create a culture where everyone feels safe and respected and where they can chase their dreams without fear holding them back. This has been a heavy deep dive for sure, but these are the tough conversations we have to have. So keep asking the tough questions, keep listening to survivors, and keep pushing for change.